If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, all right, because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play, because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hot and steamy outside and humid in Tennessee, but things are ready to cool down here at VCE Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to everyone watching or listening around the world. I'm Spencer Tomsett, joined alongside Dr. Colby Jubinville, as well as John Byers, Tyler Burnett in spirit. So proud to be with you in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's go ahead and tee things up because, as Dr. Jubinville usually does, let's tee him up this time. You don't get as much praise because you always tee up Calming Force show, the GOAT Empire, all of that. So we have to my left, impersonate for Colby there, professor, mentor, coach, personal friend of mine, and someone who is just incredible in so many different ways.
Thank you.
Dr. Colby Jubinville, glad you could be with us at the table.
I'm turning this over to him from now on. This is great. This is great. Thank you.
As mentioned, Tyler Burnett is absent, unfortunately. Wish him the best in what he's going through right now. And to my right is the GOAT Whisperer, the LinkedIn Whisperer, the calming force to our show, the lover of Kentucky bourbon, wearing some sort of shirt that's topical right now in the Music City Triathlon. Did you end up training for that? How hard was the training on it?
It just happened this Sunday, and it was a good race. It was 2 months earlier than usual. The better weather, so it was a beautiful thing.
Does Dev Digital do stuff in?
You know, they need to be in the triathlon game. Yeah, we like Dev Digital here.
Oh, absolutely. But as always, he does have a last name. His first name is John. Last name is Byers.
That's
right.
Glad
to have you on the show and everything.
Glad someone remembers.
We are like Waffle House, not just because we're sticky, but we also serve it up in a way that you can get it at all stages of life. I'm going to take it up a notch from what you said.
Yeah.
In our singles, ages 0 through 9, they tell us to start the game. In our doubles, which is 10 to 19, they tell us to enjoy the game. Yeah! Because you don't have to worry about expenses or gas prices or anything going on. So in our doubles, they tell us to enjoy the game. 20s tell us to get in the game. 30s, move up in the game. 40s, because those 30-year-olds are so damn good. Tell us to stay in the game. Then in our 50s, as the research shows time and time again, what is it that I really want? And in sports, GOATs are so easy to see. It's those who elevate the play of everyone else around them. But in business, it's those who compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. It gives themselves and others energy, and it creates new levels of challenge and opportunity. Doc already mentioned it, but Dev Digital does that kind of same thing. They give energy to themselves, to others, energy fueling within the GOAT Consulting podcast and everything. So special thanks to Dev Digital for all that they do. So, you know what? To impersonate Colby again, Spencer Tom said, "This is for you." I'm going to hand it out to John. I'm just going to let him do the show.
Yeah.
I'm going to let him do
Spencer,
it.
What just happened?
I don't know. Singles and doubles, dude.
What just happened?
Singles, they say start the game. Doubles, they say have fun in the game.
Just enjoy it. Don't have to worry about gas prices or microchip shortages or anything like that.
Just watch TikTok videos.
Just watch TikTok. Absolutely.
You are probably, you as in our wonderful global audience, wondering what in the world is happening here. Colby, can you shed some light on this?
Well, I come across all kinds of students, and without question, Spencer Tomsett is in the 1% of the 1% of students that I come across, and fortunate enough to meet him at Middle Tennessee State University in one of my classes, and we hit it off from day one. Mm-hmm. Today's show is about having a vision for your life, and in your 20s, you are taught to get in the game, and most people don't know how to do that, and don't know where to do that, don't know why they should do that. And today's podcast is about somebody that says, hey, this is the game that I want to get into, and I'm not worried about what they're saying, get the game I should get into. This is the game that I know I'm going to get into. And so we're appreciative of you being here today. You know, Spencer, you are different. One of the first things that I remember when I met you early on was you had on your LinkedIn profile. What does it say there on your LinkedIn profile?
Well, first off, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I still do not feel that I'm deserving to be a guest on this podcast.
Well, after what you just did, you are deserving.
That idea was, of course, derived from I connected with John once because I remember in your class we hit it off immediately, and you kept advertising every week. We're launching the podcast. It's time. We're launching it. Yeah. Listen to the first episode. Loved every second of it. And as I usually do with people you're mutually connected with, I send them a LinkedIn request, and then same with Tyler as well as John. John and I started talking and communicating.
And John hang out at soccer stadiums together.
No, we actually didn't.
We haven't yet.
That's another tangent in that sense, but no, John, him and I
think
started
you could coach
talking.
me to be a better host.
I think we're all learning.
No,
we're all
but
learning today.
John and I started talking and just connecting. I kept giving him feedback because that's where we learn the most. One of the many frameworks you give. And John had this suggestion.
Helps me with my marriage, parenting.
It started with I started listening to the podcast so many times with every episode that I'm like, Colby loves frameworks so much because repeatability, predictability, and efficiency.
Yeah.
And I just one day on a call, I'm like, here, close your eyes and see how this sounds. Hey, I'm Colby Jubinville.
That's right.
Welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast. And you said, send that to me in a voice note. I did. You sent it off to Tyler and John. He messages me saying, hey, that's a great impression. We need you on the podcast.
That's
I'm
right.
like, I'm not
And
deserving.
here we are.
And, a bunch
All
of
the
phone
rest is
calls.
history.
And he had his people call my people. And
And what does it say on your LinkedIn profile?
the rest is history, but I consider it a privilege every second I'm here. My LinkedIn profile, social
getting to
media,
it.
all of it says aspiring to be the play-by-play commentator for the Super Bowl on CBS, NBC, Fox, or ESPN.
I don't think there's any issue, any question about what it is he's trying to accomplish.
So let's just I totally agree, and let's just take a snapshot of what has happened to get him to today, right?
Yeah.
He completely, in a masterful and slightly tongue-in-cheek way, impersonates us, sends us the video or the sound bite, and willed his way onto this show. Like, in a way where, like, I wanted you to be here.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you asked. It wasn't like you forced it.
He took it over.
But you willed it into being.
Yeah. Just like he did that.
That same thing is happening as you aspire. I firmly believe you will be commentating a Super Bowl one day.
Where was that seed planted for you?
Try to keep it more condensed. My main job is with Uber and Lyft, and I have people ask this question all the time. So I fortunately have a kind of condensed version of it. So I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and my older sister. So it's Hunter is the oldest. Jericho, Montana are my sister's older siblings, and they played volleyball their entire life throughout middle school and high school. And I, through that, I was traveling with them because you know how it is with siblings. It's that I'm not going to separately pick you up and do any of that. So they just my parents decided you're going to travel with them. So I figured make the most of it. So line judge, water boy, doing errands for the team, whatever it had to be. And it ended up eventually they were like, hey, here's this camera. We need film study. And this was back in 2000. This is back in the late 2000s, getting towards the 2010s decade. And continued through there, and then basketball in 6th grade, which is about 2010, 2011. They said, "Hey, we need somebody to film basketball. We don't have anybody to volunteer. Here's a camera. Are you willing to do this?" And checked with my parents and everything. They said, "Yeah, absolutely." And continued doing that through middle school, and up until it was up in junior year, we were on a bus ride down to Fayetteville, Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
We were on a bus ride down there to a football game, and our school's headmaster, he showed me a website that has been bought out by the NFHS network, but it essentially allowed for you to use a tablet or a smartphone to stream your games. And he presented the question of, what if we tried broadcasting? Since you're already filming and such, what if we tried doing this?
Wow.
And from there, he put his trust in a 16-year-old kid with I just got iPhone 6S upgraded at the time when it's hard to believe that 2-year contracts don't exist anymore. like within the last decade, they don't exist anymore. So iPhone 6S put his trust in me with that and a Bluetooth headset to call their sports and everything. So through junior year, I did that. I was coming home 4 or 5 nights a week at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and it was a private Christian school, so you would have middle school varsity and then sometimes a JV team. So through the fall, it was 2 to 3 games a night for volleyball, and then basketball was middle school girls, middle school boys, JV boys, high school girls, high school boys. So 2, 3, 4, 5 basketball games in a night. Coming home every night, calling those. Some days voice being shot and still going through it. That was before I learned the power of throat code and halls. Wow. But at that point, it was doing that the entirety of junior year and just calling games, of course, going to football games on Friday nights and, 3-4 hours of your voice at a time. And the summer between junior and senior year, I knew I wanted to go through Tennessee Promise because you have that. For listeners who don't know, it's a program where if you do community service 8 hours a semester and you keep your GPA at a minimum 2.0 or higher cumulatively, and you fill out your FAFSA every year, your tuition's covered at any community college in the state of Tennessee if you graduated high school from Tennessee. So I knew I was going to do that because my parents, they told me, you can go anywhere you want for your first 2 years of college. We won't pay for it. Yeah. We'll pay for your textbooks and housing and that kind of stuff, but tuition-wise, you're going to a community college. So at that point, I knew I was going to go to Columbia State. And in between summer, junior, senior year, I was having the decision of what I wanted to do, and I just decided from there, from broadcasting so much, there was nothing else I wanted to do with my life other than become the play-by-play commentator for the Super Bowl.
Love it. There's
cool. There's probably a lot more to unpack in that. I would say you're 23 years old. Your iCloud email is Lego Madness at iCloud. There's a whole story behind that, I'm sure.
It's actually not that complicated, but it's just I liked Legos when I was younger.
That makes sense.
It's as simple as that.
One of the ways that we are now honoring our guests is that we ask them to share with us, as the research says, 80% of life's defining moments occur before 35. You are in the stage before 35 as a 23-year-old. What might you share a defining moment or two? Maybe you just shared one.
He did.
For Spencer Tomsett's life up to this point.
Well, first off, you mentioned 20s perspective, and again, my thoughts and condolences go out to Tyler Burnett, who's not able to be here because we were going to have 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Would have been the first time ever.
We got a rain check on that. I'm sure
absolutely.
We'll have that again at some point.
Yes.
But in terms of defining moments, so the second one actually, so normally I have a shout out to my friend Zoe. She got me this for my graduation present.
There you go.
New tie and such, but I'm wearing this tie because it's new and everything. Normally, I would wear this one. So there's a story behind this. I saw the eyes start going by.
I always love a good prop.
Yes.
So my grandfather on my father's side, he was blind the last 20 years of his life. Last 5.5 years of his life, he's on dialysis, kidney failure and everything. He went to the hospital several times and had 2 needles going through him, essentially a machine that's your kidneys filtering blood out, back in and such. He was suffering in the last several years of his life, and he didn't get to see any of us kids. He got to see a shadow of my brother when he was starting to mainly lose his vision 100%. And he passed away in May of 2015. He passed away peacefully in his sleep next to his loving bride of 50-plus years and everything, which is my grandmother, who's fortunately still with us. And I never got to tell him, because that was May 2015. I didn't realize my goal until June or July of 2015. I didn't get a chance to tell him what I wanted to do with my life. And this was one of the things that was left behind to me by him. The other is a Ruski, that Russian Ruski winter hat that actually doesn't fit me. I have an extra large hat size. His was large, so it doesn't fit in any of that regard. But
that's super cool.
I wore this to my high school graduation. I got blood on it at some other event that I was wearing at, and at the time,
because you got in a fight.
No, I wish it was that cool, but I just cut my finger or something, got blood on it, and at the time I was still understanding. In 20s they tell us to get in the game. They don't tell you all the intricacies of knowing the game. I didn't know you couldn't throw a tie in the washer. And so I threw it in there and threw it in the dryer, so now you can't really wear this. And maybe it could be, but it doesn't have the glossy finish and everything. So I decided from that point, because I was like, I can't wear them around my neck, so he's at my heart. So anytime I do any major broadcast, when I had my television debut on ESPN Plus, when I have any funerals, any of the graduation I did, I just got my master's degree from MTSU. He was right there. Wore a suit as I walked the stage and everything. He got to see it. Cool. So that moment was kind of defining for me of that, honoring his legacy, and that's why I'm not trying to segue or toot my own horn too much, but that's why I'm pursuing a PhD in communications at the University of Alabama in the fall, because my grandfather. Yeah, you absolutely have.
Did they play in the national championship this
year?
They
did. They did a couple of times.
No, we're talking about this year. I don't know.
Let me impersonate Eli Gold. Touchdown, Alabama, Devontae Smith. So, but anyway, so my grandfather got his doctorate in theology. He was a pastor after he served in the United States Army for 20 years, and he traveled around, pastor and everything. So I felt the only way to truly, honor his legacy, since I didn't get the chance to actually tell him what my goal was, is to be the first of my family in 2 generations to get a PhD.
That's super cool.
It's also hard to turn down Alabama when they give you a full ride, because as you both know, in business, money talks. In some ways, relationships talk way more, but money has a big factor to go into that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's
what a great story.
It's a defining moment.
Spencer, I got a question for you. One of the ways that we honor our guests is that we ask them to give us their own definition of a goat, and then share a goat. Would love to hear that from you. You've been a loyal listener for a long, long time. You've heard kind of how this goes. So I've been really interested and curious, fascinated, in fact, about what you're going to bring up here, because you've got a large data set that you've been a part of. So give us your definition of a goat, share a goat, and it could be a person, place, thing, moment, up to you.
So in terms of
it doesn't have to be
defining
me.
a goat.
It doesn't have to be me.
You're one of 3.
Thank you.
So in defining a goat, it's, in my opinion, it's somebody who so you'll find, not just from the conversations we're having today, but any of them we have outside of the podcast, I take a lot of my concepts and leadership lessons from 3 people. That's the one sitting to my left over here, Dr. Colby Jubenville.
Appreciate you.
Steve Harvey, because his story of living
He's
homeless,
actually been a goat before on the episode.
he absolutely is. I know that. His story of living 3 years homeless in his car and everything, and making that decision of that failure is not an option for me, which we with your previous episode, your guest, Mrs. Kick, talked about, failure wasn't an option for her. Same with Steve Harvey, and he's now on television and such. And then there's John Taffer, who, as you guys know, I love Bar Rescue. I love watching the shows, seeing those failures and everything.
Videos are
great. I send you a whole bunch of stuff like that every time. But those 3 I kind of mesh together on the leadership concepts and how I define things and such. So for me, a GOAT is, to pull from Steve Harvey, someone who finds out their gift, which, as Steve Harvey defines, the thing you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. To impersonate John, pause this, rewind, and make sure you listen to it again. Your gift is the thing you do the absolute best.
That was good.
With the least amount of effort. And a GOAT is someone who has found their gift, doesn't waste their time with anything else in that gift, and uses the power of their gift to reinvest more into those that have invested in them. Because that's the other tidbit. On social media, it's too short of a character limit on bios, because that aspiring to be the play-by-play commentator for the Super Bowl on CBS, NBC, Fox, or ESPN, all while reinvesting in those that have invested in me. That's my lifelong goal, ultimate mission statement, if you will, not a memo, mission statement, if you will. But that's my defining chasing that.
Well
because,
done. Well
because
done.
here's the thing about GOATs too, is that I told you guys,
folks. Still done.
I told you it might go a few episodes.
Keep your seatbelt on.
But the thing about GOATs as well is that for me, I told you guys leading up to this podcast and everything, I don't feel like I'm a GOAT. I don't see myself ever getting to that status or any of that regard, and that's not what I'm trying to do. It's the saying about people let their work speak for themselves. That's what I try to do. I try to use my gift to reinvest more into others that have invested in me, and that includes the friend circle. That includes Colby, part of that friend circle includes colleagues who are looking for assistance in that regard and such. And it perfectly ties into the 3 GOATs I have. Obviously, there's Dr. Colby Jubenville, who's connected me with the athletics department in Alabama. Well, at first, but then some other stories that happened with that, which is very much deserving in that connections regard. But Doc is so good at connecting people, and for those who he finds that are worth his time, he realizes It's time for me to pour into them, not solely because it benefits him, because it does. It does. I'm going to make sure I'm benefiting you in that regard. But it's also about making sure that others are fulfilled just as much as you are. So there's one. Second has to be my father at 100%. Robert Tomsett Jr. I'm not going to try to plug or make this into an advertisement for him and such, but he runs a primary care clinic in Franklin now, in the Nashville area, Grace Point Healthcare. Yeah, which check him out absolutely if you haven't had the chance to. And he's back to when he started that business 10 years ago and everything. He decided that he wanted to help people instead of just having to deal with insurance and so he cut out the middleman and made it about the patients and such. But it's reflective of how he's treated each of us kids. So he was in the United States Special Forces Army for 24 years, Green Beret, combat medic, got to jump out of airplanes and see a lot more messed up stuff than most people. But he, the biggest thing about him is that he nicknamed all four of us as four little soldiers and everything.
Of course he did.
But he, at the end of the day, he's apologized so many times for a lot of the ways that he raised us, that I could have done this different, could have done this differently. But the one thing that he prides himself in, and I understand it now as I'm getting to my adult years, is that he wanted to teach. He tried to instill in us a never quit mentality, because that's what he was taught in the military so much. He said when you're at your point, and you know this from training, from marathons and everything as well, when you're at that point of lowest of your low, when you're just tired, fatigued, you don't know what else to do, you're thinking about quitting.
You just keep going.
In the military, they make you say, I quit. Like, you have to shout at your superior and say, I quit. For him, it was, if you are at that lowest point, you're still breathing. You don't need to quit. You can't quit because you're still breathing. You're still there. You haven't been brought this far for nothing.
Yeah.
So you're at that point where if you're at that set point in your life, then you just keep going. It's same tie-in with I'm going to weave in a whole bunch of pop culture references to try and appeal to all the audience. You don't have a nickname for your goat audience. We should call them the Billy Goats. Your fans should be the Billy Goats. The consulting Billy Goats.
The consulting Billy Goats.
But for all the fans out there, reference to the movie Sing, where Matthew McConaughey's character mentions,
a great movie.
There's only one way to go from rock bottom, and that's up.
Yeah.
So that ties in so much, where my dad instilled in all of us, and at least myself and my sisters and brother have tried to take this much, is even when you're at your lowest point, you're still breathing. Go. Just don't push yourself beyond your limits and beyond what's expected of you, because if you don't do that, another Steve Harvey concept is that the guarantee in life is you have a choice when you're at a crossroads. You could go forward, attempt it, or you could go backward and not attempt it, because the guarantee in life is that if you don't attempt it, it's never going to happen.
That's
There's a 100% chance it's never going to happen.
I'm going to throw in a goat right here for this episode that I wrote down for you, and I think it fits perfectly with some of the goats that you've shared and your definition. They find their gift, the thing that...
I do have one more, but I will let you name yours.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
The thing that you're the best at with the least amount of effort. I'm going to throw in, and this is true of your future, John Madden.
He's
one of
fantastic.
The greatest,
boom.
Maybe the greatest. Boom.
Rest his soul.
That's where I get the boom from John Madden. The first game I was ever addicted to on Nintendo, and I feel like I need to say John Madden for all the obvious reasons, but specifically I want to call out Gary Danielson, the worst of all time. He is the worst. He is the GOAT. God awful, most worst of all time.
See, I hear that, but I don't think that.
Terrible. Well,
why? Because he calls out Georgia for who they are?
No, he's just so biased and he's wishy-washy, and I just want to do something bad.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from in that regard, and
my goat's Monty Love.
Monty Love. You gotta pause the episode. You gotta pause the episode, and you gotta. That's in the GOAT archives.
Pause the episode on wherever you're listening: Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the places it is. Or if you're watching on YouTube, pause it, rewind, go back to the other episodes.
If he's on Facebook.
But you know, I don't. To the most part, I don't try to disparage my colleagues in sports media. I haven't had the chance to meet Gary Danielson. I understand the kind of frustration. It's kind of the same.
I hope you don't. I hope you don't. He will bring you down.
I understand how some people have the same frustrations with Joe Buck, right? People have those kind of frustrations where they think they're not as incredible. Like, they wouldn't be kept in that position. The only thing I will challenge you on that is they wouldn't be kept in those positions if they didn't fit the role.
No, you may have some pictures on somebody.
No, I'll leave it that. But speaking of sports media colleagues, as he's looking up Monty Love, as he's looking him up, my final GOAT actually is now a Nashvilleian, Jim Nantz. The voice of the Masters, the voice of the Final Four, and the voice of the Super Bowl on CBS. I had the privilege through the obvious being a member of it. There's the National Sports Media Association, and they have a banquet every year. They had their banquet in December, so in 2020 they canceled their awards banquet. 2021 they delayed it from June to December, and December they were inducting several members into their Hall of Fame, including Tom Verducci, as well as Dick Stockton and some other members who had passed, and including Jim Nantz, and he was there with his family and everything. And that's actually I actually got to meet him and shake his hand and everything, because back in 2018 I wrote him a letter. Because I saw that he was on right before going into calling Super Bowl 53. He had an interview at his house in Pebble Beach and was talking about, here's a stack of all of the fan mail letters and everything. And I wondered from that, if he's got fan mail from there, he's got to have an address or P.O. box or something like that. Google search, found his P.O. box, wrote him a letter, told him of my aspiration, told him what I was going to do, and I asked, can I have a booth visit? Because for me, what I've realized is that Doc and I have talked about this plenty of times, is that market specific knowledge is what you gain from booth visits, and especially from someone like Jim Nantz, who absolutely is the go-to play-by-play broadcasters. Visiting him in the booth, and at the time it was with. I believe that was actually the first year.
Please don't say Gary Danielson.
No, that was the first or second year he was paired with Tony Romo. So that was his first or second year with him, and that was after right around the time he was calling the Super Bowl with Tony Romo. And I didn't think much of it, because when you're at that notability, there's people who respond to fan mail and people who don't. And, I didn't think much of it, because if he says there's a stack of fan mail there, like, it's probably going to get lost in the mail or get lost in a stack. I don't expect everything. Within a month or two, I got a letter in the mail from him that was addressed actually from New York, and I didn't know what it was at first. And then handwritten letter from Jim himself, from his letterhead, that said, when you graduate from MTSU, you should reach out to us again. Regarding a booth visit, I appreciate all the warm words. Keep pursuing the dream. You can do this.
That's cool.
And so he wrote that, and I still have to frame it. I know where it is under lock and key, but I have to frame it in that regard. And there's another moment from that in 2020. The Sportscasters Talent Agency of America, which is individuals around my age or in the sports media industry that are looking for jobs and everything. It's a membership website and such. And during the pandemic, they held a free webinar on Zoom where they had sportscasters who they didn't really have anything else to do at the time, because they were all locked up, sports canceled and all of that. And Jim Nantz was on there, so obviously have to be there. And we all get on the Zoom call and everything, and they're taking turns. They had the little hand raise feature that they had on Zoom and everything. So of course I activated mine, kept it up every single time, kept raising people. And then the proctor didn't call on me, and then they came to and the guy's name is John Chalesnik. I got to meet him in December as well. He's a fantastic guy. And he was like, okay, last question, everybody. And I go like this on the webcam, have that smile, hoping something like that. And Jim, and he calls some other guy, and Jim mentions, he's like, okay, I saw Spencer with his hand up, but okay. And he had the smirk on his face, and he answered the question from whoever it was that asked. I can't even remember what the question was. And then Jim finished up. He's like, by the way, John, I know we're done with questions. I saw Spencer with his hand up, so I just want to acknowledge Spencer. Rapid fire question time. Go ahead. And at that point, there was another one of those moments, two of three, where Jim went out of his way to make me feel heard, acknowledged, and listened to. But again, tangent.
It's good to have goats in your life.
December in Winston-Salem. he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and as he's walking away from the stage, goes to the outside to take a picture with his group and everything like that. So the person I was with, they were like, "Hey, he might be leaving. This is the only time that you're going to get a photo with him." So we walk outside and everything, kind of weave our way until he's done with the photos and everything, and then shook his hand for the first time and all that. And
did he remember you?
I don't know if he directly did. He just because he had so many of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I shook his hand and everything, and I had my name tag on that said Tennessee and such. She's like, "Which part of Tennessee you're from?" I said, Franklin. He said, "We actually just moved to Nashville." And I'm like, "Oh, really?"
Man.
So
that's cool.
But even better, after the ceremony, after they were done and such, they were walking out. I shook his hand again, and I said, "I just wanted to thank you for making me feel acknowledged, heard, and listened to, and giving me a voice." And I'm like, I don't want to trouble you too much. I'm a collector. I had in my pocket Super Bowl 50 medallion, one of those placards that I'm wondering, could I trouble you for an autograph? He's like, absolutely. So I got his autograph, and as he walked away, I told him, if there's ever anything I could do for you or your family since you're in Nashville, let me know. And he said, I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool.
And then sent him a birthday gift last month as well to repay him for his kindness and such. So
kids got
there we go.
It out.
Will you hang out with us for a little more of this conversation?
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
I don't know who's shutting us down. I have no idea. I just know it's not me.
He is. I'm not doing it.
All right, we'll stick with you guys for another episode. Stick around for part 2, which is coming up in a few moments, for Tyler Burnett in spirit, as well as Dr. Colby Jubinville and John Byers, Spencer Tomsett, and this is the Goat Consulting Podcast.
Oh.